Hey there, hope you're doing well. In this video, let's talk about Ruby gems and npm modules and libraries and dependencies in general. The other day, I noticed that one of my team members had actually started using an npm module that had a minimal number of downloads, right? And then I had a chat with my engineer, and we had a discussion around it, talking about what are some of the factors you should consider in actually picking dependent modules and gems and libraries and whatnot, right? Because what happens quite often is when you have a need for something, people go to say npmjs.com or rubygems.org and then look for something, and the first hit or the second one that it returns, the result, if it looks kind of like what people need, they start using it. There's a lot of issues here. Let's start at the first one. The first one could be that could have been, I mean, I don't know how these results are returned, but it's not necessarily based on adoptability or popularity and such. I don't think so, because sometimes you see these modules returned that have like a meager number of downloads on a weekly basis. That's one. So one is they have like only a few thousand downloads a week, and two, they may have not been touched or commit, there wouldn't have been a commit in the last many years. So in this example, the npm module, actually I don't remember which one it was. Yeah, I think it was a YAML module. It had only a handful of downloads on a weekly basis, and it also was not committed. There were no commits in the past 5 years or so. So obviously we don't want to use it. We're not using it. But I've seen engineers pick these types of modules and gems all the time, and if it goes unnoticed, what happens is you have a proliferation of these dependencies in your code base. So you look at the package JSON or gem file, you see a number of these items, and there's many issues actually. Let me go slowly one by one. The first one is it doesn't have enough downloads and not many people are using it. Two, but what does it mean? It means that that this gem or library that you're actually looking at is probably not the best one, right? So there's probably other good ones out there. So the number of downloads is important. How frequently you see commits and how many pull requests are open, how many commits are being made, when was the most recent commit. All of them tell you how active that project is, right? If it is not, and if the last change was like 5 years ago, you surely don't want to use it. I mean, even if the last change was like 6 months ago, 12 months ago, I would still be a little bit concerned, but I cannot say that with certainty, because there are cases of libraries becoming stable enough where there may not be very many changes, not frequently at least, but they still do a pretty good job. I've certainly used some of them for many years. So you can't go with just that, but you have to go with the combination of these factors, right? But if it's 5 years, 2 years, no, it's no good. And then you want to see the number of committers, and then the stars, folks, and all the kind of typical stuff, just to get a sense for how many people are using the gem. I just say gem, but I mean npm modules, all of them, right? You get the idea. That's one thing. Now, the second point is sometimes there is a thin wrapper to let's say there are plenty of Ruby gems out there that are no more than a thin wrapper to actually some other, maybe even I'm trying to think of an example, right? They don't provide any additional value, they just gemify a functionality. You don't want to do that. Is Bootstrap, if memory serves me right, I think there might be a gem for Rails Bootstrap. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is one, which I don't know if it provides a whole lot more value than just being a gem that wraps a piece of JavaScript code, right? I mean, again, there's no right or wrong answer. I would not use a library for that kind of stuff. It's much easier to interact with the underlying libraries directly and not with the gem or the npm wrappers on top of them, because they never end up being maintained, not actively, and then you're stuck, because if there is an upgrade to the underlying library, that upgrade might not surface itself in the wrapper, at least not immediately, or maybe never. So you could get into a sticky situation. So don't try to use a gem or a module just because it's quick and convenient. What takes like 5 minutes might take maybe 2 hours if you did not use it, but it's still, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of time. So you certainly want to ask yourself if you should actually be using this library and if it's providing enough value. And if it does, and you feel like, okay, it's active, it's maintained, it's current, there's plenty of millions of downloads on a weekly basis, and you want to use it, then there's one more question at the minimum you have to ask yourself, which is there another module or a dependency that's already part of your repo, your application? If it is, what is the point in using this other one? Just because it does things slightly differently, or maybe it has one or two extra methods and features of functionality. Or if that's not good enough for a reason, right? So you want to use the one that's already there. But if you feel like the one that's already there is like dated, and you feel like it's important to make the switch or transition, that's a separate effort in itself. I don't think you should make it part of your feature implementation, right, or your enhancement. It should be a separate activity, because that will have an impact on all of your existing implementation, right? So if I'm replacing an existing YAML module with a new one, the method calls are going to be different, the integration with that library is going to be different. So everywhere else in my code, in our code base, that we would have used the previous library, we need to swap it to using this new one. What we don't want to do is have 3 different YAML modules that basically solve the same problem. It's going to be difficult to maintain, and if your package, or whether if you're using npm, the package lock, or if you're using yarn, the yarn log files are just going to keep growing, and you're going to run into package dependency issues. Trust me, that's one of the most difficult problems to solve. So the more libraries you have when you don't need them, the more difficult it's going to be when you have to start resolving those dependencies. I mean, this is true across all frameworks, right? It's not specific to like Ruby or JavaScript, because even on in our Flutter apps, every time I do a Flutter upgrade, I keep my fingers crossed, right? Because I'm not sure what might break in terms of its dependencies. And I've resolved them more than once in the last 2 or 3 months, and it takes quite a bit of time, and it's a distraction, right? Because it takes away time that we could be using in implementing a new feature or an enhancement. We'd actually have to do, just keep the dependencies happy and in sync. So, I mean, of course, we need to use these modules and plugins because you don't want to reinvent the wheel. I'm not proposing that you don't use these libraries that are available and sort of reinvent the wheel. That's not the idea, obviously. But you want to make sure you keep that to the necessary minimum, and you also want to make sure that they are not redundant, and most importantly, make sure that they are very active in the community right now, because if they are not, it's going to lead to plenty of problems, right? So that's basically it. And if you want to check out products that use good dependencies, ones that use active dependencies, use dependencies that are stable, one thing that comes to mind is snowpal.com. So of course I have to end this with a shameless promotion. Definitely go check out our platform and download our app, and tell me how much time it saved you. It's not a question of if it saves you time, it's only a question of how much, because we are confident it will actually. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.